In this video, we are going to talk about how we can use substitution to evaluate expressions. So key terms here. Number one, variable. We should be very familiar with this term by now. This means an unknown. So when we don't know what a number is in an expression, so an unknown number, this is where we use any letter A to Z. You guys will see me use X a lot. I don't know why that's my go-to, but any letter. So for instance, in B, 3B plus 2, B is our variable. Okay. Now, substitution is a new term. This just means to plug in. To substitute, to plug in. When you're substituting in for somebody in a basketball game, right? You're taking that person's place on the basketball court, right? You're subbing in. So you're in math, you're subbing in a number for a variable, or we're plugging in a number for a variable. So for example, in our expression here, we have 20 plus 3n. Now first, we have a coefficient here, right? When a number is right next to a variable, our coefficient is 3. Coefficient also means to multiply. Whenever you guys see a number right next to a variable, that coefficient, that's really just taking out the multiplication sign, right? Because we can write multiplication with our little dot, with X, even though we're trying to get away from that since it looks like a variable now. And we can also write it with parentheses. So anytime a number is next to parentheses or next to a number, it means to multiply. So this is really saying 20 plus 3 times n, okay? So now it's telling us to substitute in n for 2.5. So instead of 20 plus 2 times n, 3 times n, we're going to do 20 plus 3 times 2.5. Now, if you guys remember, with PEMDAS, what comes first? Addition or multiplication? Our multiplication comes first, so we're going to multiply here. 3 times 2.5. Remember, we stack up 2.5. If you don't know this off the top of your head, 3 times 5 is 15. 5 goes down, 1 goes up. 3 times 2, and then plus the 1 that we have carried is going to be 4. Oh, nope, that's not right. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Much better. Okay, in this case, now we're done. We don't have another number that we need to multiply by, so we don't need to add a second row. Now we just add our multiplication sign back in. Now remember, in this case, we are just moving it over one time, but you never want to just drag it down like you do when you're adding or subtracting. We always count our digits after the decimal point. So in our first number, we have 1 digit after our decimal point. So we're moving our decimal over 1. So it's 7.5 here. Just like with evaluating expressions, we're going to bring everything else down so we don't lose our placing. Now we just have 20 plus 7n. Again, if you don't know that off the top of your head, you can write 20 as a decimal. $20 is 20.00. Line up our decimal points when we add or subtract decimals. And we have 27.5 is our final answer. So when we plug in 2.5 for n, we would get 27.5. Example 2, substitute the value for the variable to complete the table. So our expression here is 50 minus t, or t less than 50. Okay, but now it's telling us, what if t is 10? So instead of 50 minus t, I'm going to do 50 minus 10. That is going to be 40. What if our t is 20? 50 minus 20 is 30. And what if t is 25? 50 minus 25. Again, if you don't know this off the top of your head, you can always stack up your numbers, borrow 10 minus 5 is 5. 4 minus 2 is 2. So whenever you see a table, all it's asking you to do here is plug in all three of these numbers or substitute all three of these numbers in for our variable. Last one. 4 plus y minus 3 times 5 when y equals 5, 7.5, and 12. So once this is substituted in all of these numbers individually to see what we get. So first, let's do our 5. Okay, so 4 plus, instead of y, I have 5 minus 3 times 5. Now, with PEMDAS, I want to do parentheses first. I do have parentheses. 5 minus 3 is 2. Everything else I bring down so I don't lose my placing. I'm done with parentheses. I do not have exponents, but I do have multiplication. 2 times 5 is 10. All that's left is to add my 4. So when y is 5, my answer is 14. The next one is 7.5. Same thing, I'm going to write my expression down. Instead of y, I have 7.5. Again, I have to do what's in my parentheses first. 7.5 minus 3. Remember, I can write them as decimals if I don't know off the top of my head. Oops. Bring down my decimal. 7 minus 3 is 4. So that would be 4.5. I'm going to bring everything else down. My next step with PEMDAS is to multiply. 4.5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 goes down, 2 goes up. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. I have one digit after my decimal place, so I'm going to move my decimal over one time. Now at the bottom of my expression, all I have to do is add 4. 22.5 plus 4. I'm going to write 4 as a decimal, line up my decimals, and I'm going to go ahead and add. So when t is 7.5, my answer is 26.5. Last but not least, when y is 12. So when y is 12, I have 4 plus 12 minus 3 times 5. With PEMDAS, I'm going to do my parentheses first. So I have 12 minus 3, which is 9. Everything else stays the same. I next need to do my multiplication. 9 times 5 is 45. And I have to add my 4, which would be 49. So when y is 12, my answer is 49.